Yeah, good. That's good. This is the whole point that we want to have learning, we want to share experiences and knowledge, even if it isn't the same conversations about technology transfer and means of implementation, right? Good. So thank you very much, everyone. And I'm honored to be here today as your moderator at this event hosted by the African Development Bank. My name is Mejabin Alarakia. I actually lead the work on women's economic empowerment for East and Southern Africa for UN Women. So I'm from the gender world, and therefore this is the discussion that we have. So we also have colleagues who are listening and following online. So a warm welcome to those of you who are following online. Unfortunately, we don't have the setup here for you to be able to engage with us, but we are also still very happy to have you follow along. And we do hope to hear from you in some way or the other if you have any reflections for any to any of the discussions that we have today. So I would, without wasting too much time, I would like to take us straight to our opening remarks today. So our first speaker is online, so you will need the headphones to be able to hear what she's saying. Our first speaker is Dr. Jemima Njuki, who is the Director of Gender, Women's Empowerment, and Civil Society Department of the African Development Bank. She is a globally recognized gender equality and women's empowerment expert and researcher who brings extensive experience of gender mainstreaming across sectors, including agriculture and food systems, climate change and energy, financing and infrastructure development. So over to you, Jemima, to open the session for us.
Excellent. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. On behalf of the African Development Bank Group, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this high-level side event at the Africa Climate Summit, whether joining online or in person. Let me begin by extending our sincere appreciation to the government of Ethiopia and the Africa Union, as well as to our valued partners from the Climate Investment Funds, UN Women, civil society, and the private sector for their collaboration. I would also like to acknowledge the dedicated teams across the bank that have put this together, the Climate Finance and Environment Department, the Gender, Women and Civil Society Department, and the Human Capital, Youth and Skills Development Department, who have jointly organized this event. Let me thank all of those working at and with the bank to advance gender-responsive climate and energy solutions. Colleagues, we meet at a pivotal moment. Across Africa, we are seeing the impact of climate change and we see the deepening inequalities. Women, particularly in rural areas, are bearing the brunt of these shocks, while too often they are excluded from decision making, from access to finance, and often lack opportunities in the green economy. A 2024 report indicated that only 32% of jobs in the green economy are taken up by women. Yet we also know that when women are empowered as leaders, as innovators, and as entrepreneurs, our collective response to climate change becomes stronger, becomes more resilient, and more sustainable. At the African Development Bank, we have made a clear commitment. 100% of our climate operations must integrate. Through initiatives such as AFAWA, which is the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, our flagship program, Fund, which supports African countries and local grassroots, regional, and think tank organizations to implement gender responsive climate and energy actions. The bank is advancing inclusive climate solutions. Together with the climate investment funds, we are showing that finance, policy reform, and data must work hand in hand to dismantle structural barriers and open pathways for women-led enterprises and inclusive green jobs. with the bank's broader vision for Africa's transformation, moving from dependence on unprocessed commodity exports towards diversified industrial economies is essential for generating wealth, jobs, and competitiveness. This shift goes hand in hand with our gender and climate agenda. When we invest in renewable energy, digital connectivity, and value chains that process and transform African resources locally, we also create new opportunities for women and youth to play a central role in a just and inclusive just transition. Today's discussion is about connecting these dots between finance and policy, between governments and communities, between evidence and action. It is about moving beyond commitments to action and to concrete results so that women entrepreneurs can access affordable credit, so that young people can gain the green skills of today and tomorrow, and communities can thrive in the face of climate risks. We must position Africa as a unified force to influence global processes, including COP30, the G20, and the UN General Assembly outcomes on the gender equality and climate change nexus. And this event offers us an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to learn from each other, to share what works, and to commit to partnerships that will ensure Africa's energy transition is green, it is inclusive, and it is just. I look forward to the rich exchanges ahead and to the collective momentum that we will build here today. So thank you very much for joining us, and really looking forward to the conversation. Over to you, Mejabin.
Hotel Diet. Please welcome.
Thank you very much, Merjabin. Good afternoon, Excellencies, colleagues, and partners. It's a great pleasure to be here on behalf of the Climate Investment Funds. I want to thank the African Development Bank, the African Union, as well as the government of Ethiopia for hosting and convening this important dialogue during the Africa Climate Summit. So we are here to talk about scaling gender responsive climate and energy solutions. And at the CIF, the Climate Investment Fund, it's not just a priority, it is truly part of our DNA. So I'm curious here, just by show of hands, who knows the Climate Investment Funds? 5 people, 6 people. Okay, that's not too bad. So the CIF, for those of you who are not very familiar with us, we are one of the world's largest multilateral climate funds and the leading source of concessional climate finance to multilateral development banks, such as the African Development Bank. And we provide so highly competitive catalytic capital to reduce risk, unlock private investment, and accelerate climate action. So across 82 countries, we have committed over $12.5 billion through 10 programs, always with a focus on scale, inclusion, and impact. And due to Africa's vulnerability to climate, over a third of our investments on the continent are purely focused on resilience and adaptation, but the rest supports clean energy transitions. But we don't just fund projects, we aim to build ecosystems. And so our investments are designed to bring partners together around shared goals. And one of them is including gender responsive energy transitions. So over the past 10 years, our gender action plan have evolved from simple checklists into strategic tools that shape and accelerate change in climate finance. Because let's be clear, scaling gender responsive finance is not just about earmarking budgets, it's about shifting systems. And that's why we are joining forces with AfDB and other partners to embed gender at the heart of climate finance, which is where it belongs. I want to give you one example in Mali. With the AfDB, we supported a program to expand access to modern energy in rural areas using proven technologies such as mini hydropower. And the result is that an estimated 36,000 women and girls will gain access to clean and productive energy. But we all know climate change is not gender neutral, and that women and girls, especially in vulnerable settings, face the hardest impacts. But they are also powerful agents of change, and our experience at the CIF across 82 countries shows that when women are empowered in energy systems as users, as entrepreneurs, as decision makers, we see that access improves, resilience grows, and communities thrive. So I just want to also highlight a critical enabler, which is data. So this panel will focus on it, and rightly so, because without gender responsive data, we are flying blind. We can't measure impact, we can't ensure accountability, and we cannot design better solutions. And so CIF is investing in data systems and knowledge products that help us track progress, identify gaps, and also make evidence-based solutions. But we must go further. And we need strong analytical frameworks that not only quantify impacts, but also unpack the deeper issues, power dynamics, social norms, and systemic barriers like unequal access to finance, land, and childcare. So that's why gender equality and social inclusion are now embedded in the investment criteria and the results framework of the CIF, and especially in our latest new programs. We're trying and we're aiming to move beyond numbers towards a more holistic understanding of change. So let me close by restating CIF's commitment to being a catalyst for inclusive, clean energy solutions that deliver impact. Thank you very much, and thanks again to the AfDB and the government of Ethiopia for hosting this important exchange. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farah, for helping us understand also the new priorities and how the funds and the bank are looking at bringing gender equality into the investments that are being made right now. And I think this is very much in line with the discussions that have been ongoing so far, that we're looking at investing and really looking at how we grow together in an inclusive manner throughout Africa in our climate journey. So the next part of the session is we will have a panel discussion where we will explore some of these discussions in a bit more depth with a few of our esteemed guests. And after that, we will open up the floor to all of you to also have a dialogue with us so that we can have a joint conversation on what we would like to see. So for the panel, I would like to invite the speakers up. So the first one is Nolutundu Mitimkulu, who is a senior program manager at the National Business Initiative, leading work on South Africa's just energy transition. She manages the JET Skilling for Employment program, JET-SEP, which develops inclusive green skills and jobs across renewable energy, sustainable manufacturing, and climate smart sectors. The second speaker I would like to invite up is Angela Muraguri, who is an associate director of Kawi Safi, where she leads transactions and provides critical post-investment support to companies deploying clean technologies across Africa. She also leads the gender practice at Kawi Safi, championing inclusive investment through both venture capital portfolio as well as the fund's technical assistance facilities. Third speaker is Kidanua Abera Gizau, a climate specialist at the African Development Bank and serves as the AfDB coordinator for the SIFT funds. She brings nearly 20 years of experience in sustainable development, including 12 years at UNDP Ethiopia on energy and low carbon development. I'd like to also invite Dr. Danabo who holds a PhD in sustainability science and has over 15 years of experience as a university lecturer, researcher, and development practitioner, and is currently a senior stakeholder coordination and policy specialist at Farm Africa, Ethiopia, and an additional training in gender, climate change, project cycle management. And I just want to check if Natsanet Aragao is here. Yeah, we need we need one more chair, or maybe she'll bring her own chair. Thank you so much, and apologies for that. Okay, so thank you. This we have a very educated and very with a panel with a wide range of experiences in both international development, but as well as gender and financing. So I do hope that we will have a really interesting discussion. So I'll start with Natsanet. And for this one, I would like we look to you to bring entrepreneurial experience, showing how women are innovating in climate smart agriculture and nature based solutions. The discussion would highlight both opportunities and barriers facing women in building climate resilient enterprises, from access to finance and markets to recognition in policy areas. We'd like you to reflect on your own experience and draw from lessons that could inspire governments, financiers, and development partners to support women led climate smart businesses. So, particularly with that in mind, um, from your entrepreneurial journey, what have been the biggest barriers for women entering climate smart agriculture and nature based solutions? I think.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I just wanted to reintroduce myself and just give a brief description about what we do. I'm from General Manager and co-founder of Forested Ethiopia, and I'm delighted to speak on behalf of our team today. Forested is an ingredients inset company operating out of East Africa, and so we trade um, ingredients bundled up with environment impact units from diverse ecosystems along East Africa. To answer your question, um, I would like to frame it in from two standpoints, one from women farmers and then one from like entrepreneurs like us, um, who are in this climate space. From a women farmer standpoint, I believe, and this has been discussed on different occasions where women have usually no access to land. And so one of the biggest barriers is access to land, access to finance, and also, you know, in general, women farmers are very busy with household activities. So that um, is a major obstacle for them to, you know, engage in smart agriculture even within their own backyard farming spaces. For women, um, like the women in our team who are engaged in this nature-based solutions, the biggest problems that we've been facing is the access to finance, and mostly because it's a male dominated sector, but also all the supply chains, in particular agricultural supply chains, are also male dominated. And I would say these are the two of the biggest obstacles so far.
Great, thank you so much. And what do you think could be lessons that governments and financial institutions can take from community-driven enterprises like yours to inform inclusive policy and guiding their investments?
Well, I do think from a financial standpoint, they should be promoting women to have, there should be a bigger risk appetite for investing in women. And the statistics show that women actually do pay back loans, even from like these microfinance institutes. But like for SMEs like us, where we're in the midst of scaling, it's been difficult because we can neither get loans from the microfinance institutes and or like the commercial or the traditional loan institutions, and we're somewhere in between where we have to collateralize a lot of the loans that we're trying to get out. But as as a business trying to scale, that's been very difficult for us. So the government actually needs to build policies around supporting women who are actually scaling in the space right now. They're from a community perspective, basically understand and promote regen practices, especially at smallholder levels. In addition to that, integrates traditional and indigenous community practices, because that has been restoring the land and biodiversity for a long time. Yeah, those are the things that I can think about for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you raised a few very important points. First, in terms of challenges around women's additional responsibilities beyond just their enterprise, around the care responsibilities that women often hold. And then on top of that, the very interesting space that you are in terms of your enterprise, where you're sandwiched in between the different options, where you're too big for micro enterprise but too small for real investment, and trying to grow that. I think those are all very interesting perspectives, and recognizing that all the financial sort of support and entrepreneurship support is generally targeted towards male oriented formal enterprises, and while you are a formal enterprise, there's still some challenges that you're having in terms of accessing that. So very interesting perspectives, and thank you for bringing them. I would like next to move to Nolu, and for Nolu, from a workplace perspective, um, where would you see are the most urgent gaps in skills? And because you work so much in upskilling and skills development, so where would you see the most urgent gaps in skills development for women in renewable energy, and how can development partners and key sector actors make those happen to close those gaps?
Sure. Thank you so much for that question. And just to give a high level of the JETSEP program, it stands for the Just Energy Transition Skilling for Employment Program. And it essentially stems from the implementation plan of the JET in South Africa. And it's the private sector's coordinated effort to support the workforce into the transition and making sure that young people, women, those who are transitioning are equipped as we move into renewables. And so what we've seen as, some of the urgent gaps, firstly, at an entry level, too few women have access to artisan, technical, and engineering pathways. Without structured training and aligned to empower women led green enterprises. And then looking at a specialist level, so that third urgent gap is women remain absent in grid planning, in project management, and high voltage electrician roles, which are specialist technical roles. And these are quite critical for the requirements of the transition itself. So to just respond to how this is being addressed or how we can start to close those gaps, the JETSEP is addressing these gaps by engaging and really working with industry partners, with the private sector to scale elements such as in-service training for young people, unlocking barriers, and really supporting women-owned businesses and SMMEs, and attempting in the best way possible with our various stakeholders to open pathways to specialist certification programs. We understand that closing these gaps requires collaboration at all levels, and we require both industry partners and development partners to co-fund, to support, to provide workplace-based learning opportunities, and really to embed the gender-responsive targets that are required. So we completely understand that it needs to be a deliberate piece of work that we do in terms of bringing women on board and responding to those gender needs. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So, could everyone hear that properly, or was there? Okay, good. So, in that case, I just want to have a follow-up discussion with you on which partnerships then can scale gender to skilling and employment through COP30 and beyond.
So I think I have mentioned. So have mentioned industry. I think thanks. Um, Partners that are in finance, partners that are looking at governance, as well as training need to be part of the responsiveness and bring in that nature. So speaking specifically to development finance, which must be deliberate in empowering women-led industry that supports training institutions to have opportunities that open pathways for women, skill. And through JetSep, we've also noted the private sector's contribution. That brings a sense of coordination and accountability that will take us not only beyond G20, not only beyond COP30, but really moving to those targets of 2030, 2035, and that big year that two, which is opportunities with the various partners that we have.
Thank you so much for those, very, very industry-specific insights around really what we can do, and really looking at some of the solutions that we have available or that we could create. That's very, very interesting around, looking at replication and sustainability also across Africa. So Angela, hold on. I think can I get the IT team? There seems to be some interference in our sound. Yes, can you hear me? Is it clear now? Or is it has a lot of interference? It's okay? Okay. So Angela, Kawisafi. Kawisafi has been investing in clean, affordable energy ventures across Africa. First of all, to see a woman in that space is already quite an achievement, and then we have a women-led organization doing this. That's great. So, from your perspective, as a venture capital funding partner with AFAWA, what interventions would have proven most effective in channeling capital to women-led enterprises in renewable energy?
Yeah, thank you, Mejarine. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd first like to highlight what the challenge is. I think most of the panelists here have spoken about lack of access to financing for female-led businesses. In venture capital specifically, I'd like to say that the statistic is even worse. There's between 5 to 7% of capital that's flowing within venture capital that actually goes to female-led and female-founded businesses, and that's not sustainable. There are all these businesses that have significant potential that are not able to access the financing that they require to scale. And this is why Kawisafi Ventures, which is a venture capital fund, as Mejabin mentioned, that highlights or invests in clean energy companies deploying clean energy technologies across Africa, uses a gender lens when we think about who we are investing in and how we make our investments. So the first thing that has been really, really useful is first identifying the biases that we carry ourselves as investment professionals. And I think when we talk about this access to finance and these gaps, there's this understanding that it's somewhere, that these systemic barriers are somewhere in the air and they don't relate to us. But the truth is, there are actually individuals who are making these investment decisions, and these individuals actually carry significant bias when looking at different businesses started by men and those started by women. And for us, AFAWA has been a partner with us, and one of the areas where they've really structured around how the fund makes investments is actually providing the fund investment professionals with gender sensitization training. So the whole team goes through training to make sure we understand the biases that we carry, and we're able to identify and make sure that the process that we run when managing our due diligence processes, etc., are free from bias. And what does that look like in practice? I'll give an example. Research has found that when investment professionals are diligencing women, they focus a lot on risk. And when the same investment professionals are diligencing men, they focus a lot on ambition. And that is a bias in itself. So for us, it's really important to identify the areas where we make this process more difficult for female founders and try to address that. The second thing is we also have targets. So we don't just wait for businesses to come and hope that we fund these female founded businesses. 35% is the minimum that we're choosing to invest in female founded businesses. So that's a hard target. We have to achieve that. So by setting these targets, it focuses the entire team to make sure that we diversify our pipeline and also diversify who it is that we're investing in. And then thirdly, we found that female-founded businesses not only struggle to raise the capital at the stage in which we invest, but they also struggle to raise what we call follow-on funding. So we may fund them at this stage, which is where we consider early stage businesses to be, but who funds them the next time around? And for us, we really are intentional in supporting our businesses raise not only funding from our stage of investment, but also supporting them and making sure they're able to raise the follow-on funding that is really critical to them and their scale. So for us, that's the approach we've taken, and yeah, we've seen a significant improvement in terms of the pipeline and engagement with female founders.
Super. That's so great to hear. Um, and I really like what you're saying about the biases that the evaluators have, looking at ambition versus risk. And I think we see this across the board. We see that the standards that men are held to and the standards that are held to are different. And it's very unfortunate, but we have to, exactly as you say, become aware of our biases and then try and see how we work through them or mitigate and balance them out, because the biases are often unintentional, but they are and they do affect every decision that is made. I'm happy to hear it's not just about gender-based violence, and that it is a lot more around the substance of things. So that's really good to hear. Um, and then in that same vein of what we're talking about, if we were to for scaling inclusive climate action requires both finance as well as enabling ecosystems. So, how do you think that venture capital funds like Hawisafi collaborate with development funds, with governments, with initiatives such as AFAWA to make sure that women entrepreneurs not only access capital, but also gain the skills, networks, and market opportunities to grow their clean energy businesses?
Yeah, great question. I'd like to say that our partnership with AFAWA, and I'll use that as an example, has been critical in financing our technical assistance facility. So, in as much as we have the main fund, which is the equity fund, we also have. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. We also have a technical assistance facility, and FAWA's support has primarily gone into this technical assistance facility. And what this does, it's a grant-funded facility, and the purpose of this is to make sure that the fund can go the extra mile to make sure that, one, we can identify these female-founded businesses, but two, just outside of the investment itself, that we're able to build that ecosystem that you just mentioned. So I'm glad to be seated here with people who are working in skills development and other areas. And I'll say that we've worked with universities. So we've worked with Strathmore University in Nairobi to train women to be solar technicians. We've worked with the National Institute, Technical Institute, also in Kenya, to support actually different women, especially women in rural areas, gain some of these skills that are required by the portfolio companies. We've also worked with the University of Rwanda to identify women who can actually get some of this training, because once we make the investments in the companies, we expect them to go out and recruit women into their workforce. And we need to make sure that there are women who are skilled and are able to respond. Another really interesting partnership, we do also partner with data institutions that collect gender disaggregated data across the different aspects of the work that we do. And that helps us also think through the different segments in which we invest and how best to reach women, how best to make sure that the participation that we're looking for is actually achieved. So I think there are different ways we can grow this even further, but yeah, I'd like to highlight those two specifically.
There we go. Thank you very much. That's excellent. It's good to remember there are multiple ways of accessing finance and also growing that financial ecosystem, both from public sector, but also from private and blended finance sort of opportunities or channels that exist. So it's very inspiring, and thank you so much for that. So for the next, we will go to the African Development Bank. I know you're not from Afawa, so there might be some questions for you from Afawa, but in any case, Kitanua. The African Development Bank, through SIF and other facilities, is pushing for 100% gender integration in climate operations, which is very exciting for us to hear from you and women. I'm sure others are in the same place. So, from your coordination perspective, what practical lessons have emerged, and how do you align finance policy and gender data to drive systemic change in renewable energy and climate resilience?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you. Before I start, I answer your question. So I want to say a few words about the SIF and FDB. As you said, I'm not from the AFAWA team. Africa Development Bank has various women targeted initiative and funds. But what I'm working with is through the SIF, the Climate Investment Fund. As Farah mentioned in the opening speech, more than 12 billion so far invested in at the global level. Out of this 12 billion, uh, more than a quarter of this resource already invested in Africa. We are operating in 27 African countries, from energy to natural resource and climate resilience, adaptation and mitigation, and all sorts of climate action. Recently on nature, people, climate, nature-based solution. So when we say 100% integration, we are not, that's not a moral imperative. It's really a practical one. So the SIF, the African Development Bank, through the SIF, we put gender or women in the center of our climate action. When we start our concept, starting from the concept note, we really consider bring women, all the stakeholders, including women, into the center of the designing process, not just as a consultation, but as a co-creator of our investment plan. So we start engaging the women, starting from our planning. Then once we do our planning, investment planning, then when we go into actual development of the projects and the programs, we put a specific gender targeted outcome and outputs so that we achieve and we cross-check during the implementation, during the monitoring and evaluation process. So that's through the process of our implementation or of our programmatic approach. But in addition to that, what we do is through the technical assistant, we also fund some studies, diagnostic analysis, and also we compile lessons from the already implemented programs and projects so that we inform our next planning and programming process. So, for example, to inform you, our recent diagnostic studies we did in West, South, and Eastern Africa, we gained a lot of barriers on the ground. For example, we see a lot of finance related issues, for example, lack of concessional finance for women. And in addition to not only the concessional finance, but also many women-led business enterprises they couldn't provide guarantee, so that women are left out from access to finance. This is related to the finance issues. There is also a data gap, gender disaggregated data, not only just for the sake of counting women's also, but informing the real policy and financing investment. That's another thing that we have found out. And the other thing is the structural gap. In many ministries, in many line ministries, you will not find women-centered or women-focused structures or unit that is really addresses the gap or trying to work to minimize the gap. And the other thing is we also find practically the skill gap that is very much related to, particularly when we talk about the energy and the decarbonization activity. Women are mainly not really well trained and very skilled related to the technology, related to the renewable energy and this decarbonization process. And the other one is, in addition to the access, there is no finance. There is no finance, what you call it, uh, finance that targets. So during our diagnostic assessment, we found in Eastern Africa, in Rwanda and Kenya alone, 1.22 billion finance gap that targets women. So this is a huge gap. So this is some of the basic data that we use to inform our next programs and project development. The other thing is we also see the proven models through our diagnostic studies. We didn't only focus on the gaps, but we also try to see what model worked well. For example, in Gambia, there is a gender is inclusive participatory national policy that we've developed, and it was adopted as a national action plan with a clear gender scorecard and with a clear gender targeted outcomes related to jobs and also skill trainings and also access to finance for women. So these are the things that we say practically in addition to what we are doing in a broader term, really to integrate and to bring the women into the process of the climate investment fund and climate actions. Thank you.
There's so much work that is ongoing. It's inspiring to hear. But thank you for sharing sort of the experiences and the findings that you've had also from working with SIF and the implementation of the gender action plans through that. So finally, the gender balance on the panel, our only male speaker, um, the Dr. Denabo from Farm Africa, and our representative of civil society as well. So can you please, in your experience and from what you know, tell us how can civil society and civil society organizations bridge the gap between national climate policies and the lived realities of women? Because what we have heard is, there's so much effort, but on the other hand, we see that women are still sort of at the end of this. So the national climate policies and the lived realities of women, ensuring that local knowledge informs evidence-based decisions and financing. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you all. And like you kindly introduced me, I'm from Farm Africa, and Farm Africa is an NGO specialized in development, and it has been in operation for more than 40 years. Do you hear me? Yeah, thank you very much. And through all our operations as Farm Africa, we integrate gender and climate change into all our programs, and we have also gender specialists, and gender is one of the cross-cutting issues we seriously take into account. With that brief background, let me go to answer the question. So I focus on the experience of Ethiopia and also Farm Africa as a case, as an example for CSOs. CSO is a wider group, so I would like to focus only on civil society organizations, taking Farm Africa's experience as an example. In Ethiopia, we have favorable policies and the legal frameworks that encourage both gender and climate. For example, starting from our constitution, which guarantees equal rights for men and the women, and also we have family codes that justifies equal rights in marriage, including decision-making powers on the resources. And also we have national policy on women, which asks clearly for mainstreaming of programs across sectors, gender issues into all sectoral policies and development workers. And also we have policies related to climate change, like for example, the present one, what we call it, long-term low emission development strategy. That strategy clearly calls for integration of gender into all programs, and also CRGE, climate resilient green economy, also it's very relevant. But when we track the implementation of these policies on the ground, the data does not resonate with that, with the policy call. There are reasons for that. The first one is institutional capacity gap limitations. So local institutions may not have enough adequate technical background on this subject matter, and also they are under-resourced in terms of logistics and also finance. The other reason is this issue of mainstreaming gender all along government sectoral offices has not been downscaled sufficiently. The third point is coordination issue. The sectoral offices are not adequately coordinated among each other, and also the data issues also there. At local level, we have data gaps, and also taking these factors into account, what is the role of civil society organizations like Farm Africa? Farm Africa has been trying to intervene into those gaps from the very beginning. Farm Africa is established as an environment NGO, then it evolved into development issues, and including now it is focusing on environment like forestry issues, climate change, and also agriculture and market leakage. With this all, for example, we established cooperatives, forest management cooperatives, and land management cooperatives. These cooperatives, at least 50% of them should be women. And not only that, we try to train these women, capacitate them, and also bring them to the decision making, to the committees. And at least a woman should be a chairperson or deputy chairperson of that cooperatives. These cooperatives, most of them have licenses and they are entitled to engage into businesses. Where after we capacitate them, we provide them with seed money. And through that, we try to address. When it comes to data gaps also, we collaborate with universities, local universities and international universities to do research and also to influence policies with evidence. We generate data, and also we have a robust monitoring and evaluation system at organizational level. And also we capacitate local institutions to do the same. We provide them trainings, and also we try to track the progress on the ground actually. And also the third point is we also try to fill gaps with project finances when we get finance. By the way, African Development Bank and the African Climate Change Fund are also our donors, and we appreciate that one. And it has been highlighted yesterday, I think, by Dr. Tom. So I'm not going to repeat that one, just to acknowledge that one. And with that, we use that seed money to fill gaps. For example, we construct community infrastructures like animal health posts, for example, like small irrigation. And also, we also invest on local energy. In all these investments, we take women and gender issues seriously, and at least they should account to half of the beneficiaries, minimum. And also, they should be in the decision-making body. So, as another issue is, as a civil organization, we do advocacy work with the data. We conduct policy dialogue, and also we have a reputation of influencing policies, especially in areas of forestry and also climate change. Farm Africa is very visible. And also we plan to do the same with climate change and also gender issues. And these are the examples what we can do on the ground to fill the gap between the policies on the paper and the implementation on the ground.
So much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So that's all really interesting, and I think a really constructive approach from civil society around how to build the capacity. But I want to help you or ask you to make it a bit more concrete for us. So looking ahead at COP30, and we have the gender action plan also being discussed this year. So how do you think that AfDB and CIF can ensure? No, sorry, the wrong question. My apologies. How can the commitments made at the forums, such as this side event or COP30, be translated into concrete and community level actions? Because we get stuck in a lot of sort of rhetoric and jargon and commitments at the very high level. And because these are global commitments, they are often a little bit generic so that it can be applied in any context. But how can we really make it concrete and relevant and translate them into community level action and policy and practice as well at the very grassroots level?
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. With this regard, I would say there is a considerable power within the civil society. When I say civil society this time, it also includes informal groups, including like groups of interested, concerned citizens, and also other organizations, not only NGOs. So now the time is not for empty promises. Actually, we need resources, especially in Africa, in countries like Ethiopia. We are taking practical steps. As you can see, today we are inaugurating our GERD, which is clean energy. And also you have seen the government is promoting the electric vehicles by policy. And also we are championing green legacy tree planting. We need resources for that. So it is the same in all of Africa and other developing countries. Civil societies members, they should advocate for better allocation of resources to the leaders to honor their commitments. They should not appease us with empty words and also promises which would not be materialized. And we are aware of the policy changes in big influential countries like US. We have to be strong, we have to be united, we have to call for action. Whenever we get resources, regardless of its size, we have to ensure effective implementation on the ground. In a way, it is inclusive and beneficiary to all in a participatory and inclusive way. And also we have to make sure that the benefits from that investment is fairly shared among the beneficiaries on the ground. And we should have strong monitoring and accountability mechanisms on the ground to make sure that the investments we asked for has been made and it has been already invested on the ground with high potential impact return for the investment we made. And we have to coordinate among ourselves. We have to be united. We have to raise the voices of the indigenous communities and the local communities who cannot represent on such forum. And also we have to be voice for them. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That is so important. I mean, in the time where we are seeing a shrinking of resources, we also need to then look at how we are more efficient, more effective, more accountable
Yeah.
in for those that we have. And I think your last point around coordination is very important. We need to be coordinated so we're not duplicating
Yeah.
what we're doing, but also that we are able to complement each other's work, not just in implementation, but I think also, if I can add to you, in terms of messaging,
Yeah.
so that we are speaking with one voice around the empowerment issues that we are seeing, and really bringing that to the forefront against the pushback, because this is there is a very strong pushback, and we know that there are certain forces that are playing stronger than others in this space. So thank you very much for that intervention. I think I'd like to now open it up to the audience, so you can also join the conversation. You've been very patiently listening to us for the last hour. So would you like to contribute to the conversation? Any thoughts or any questions? We have about 15 minutes, I think, for some discussion, and then we need to start wrapping up the session. So, unfortunately, the colleagues online who are following the discussion cannot interact with us at this point. But for those of you in the room, I don't know if there's anybody who has a reflection, a question. Yeah, can someone help me with the mic? So there's a lady, and then there's a gentleman over there. So the lady in the back.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I would like to raise two concerns. The first one is when we're talking of energy and climate discussions, and we are talking of finance, livelihood is important. That is true. But I think we are missing the social impact of climate change that cannot be quantified in a monetary language. And sometimes we're missing the point that as a result of climate change, these women actually spend most of their time trying to survive and making ends meet and investing in livelihood options, and miss out on the broader development. For instance, in Kenyan context, when there is a public participation, women are always trying to make adjustments and adapt to different climatic shocks.
And in the process, even public participation, or when the budgetary budgets are read or such things are happening, they do not even have a time to participate in such things. And when we are allocating funds for interventions, then we miss out allocations to such aspect of to such important aspects that get compromised as a result of climate change. And we focus so much as livelihood is important, we are missing the beat on rights and participation. And by default, then they might know there is minimal, if it's there anyway, there is minimal financial commitments that are allocated in terms of building capacity of these women. At the end of the day, the NGOs and the development sectors are not going to be there every day. So how are we talking of resilience of these women, climate resilience, when they do not even have information on what's being discussed?
So do you have a question around this?
That was something to consider. And my question, although she's not in the panelists, goes to SIF. And it's about the issue of financing. The issue of not having enough funds for women investment has been raised. As much as there are they only deal with governments and the rest of the high level organizations. I think by default, women at the grassroots level, because of the procedures and requirements, they end up actually missing on what should actually come to them. And in the process, what happens? The money goes to, there are intermediaries. Most of these women have relied so much on social safety nets among their groups. So, as if my question is, how do you intend? Are there flexibility in terms of taking that into considerations? Uh, is there a possibility of actually trying to see how women at the grassroots level can get funds? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have another question. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the different presenters. My name is Abu Bakar. I'm from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I just want to ask around energy. I don't know the two who's working to see how they can empower women. For the JET project, is it working only in South and Eastern Africa, or is it continental level? That is one. Then for you also saying that women are being disadvantaged. I stand to be disagree with that statement because I have been in a competition. I'm also a young innovator, climate innovation from Sierra Leone. I've been in a competition wherein um, we are in a race with a women-led, and at the end of the day, although I became a match, but they decided to talk to me to give that opportunity to women. So I think it's think about awareness raising, how women should come on board, create their own business rather than saying that they are disadvantaged. If they have that kind of awareness that they need to create their own businesses, they will start so far. Then for the capacity development, we had seen where in my country, UNDP train women in solar installation. But despite the just capacity building, is there any support that you guys are providing for them? Because capacity itself is not just enough for them to move to deep entrepreneurship scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have another question here in the front.
Thank you. I'm from ActionAid. Thank you for the panelists. I'm so glad to attend this conversation. But my question goes to for the lady for African development. I would like to ask you how we are going to be implement inclusive gender responsive action, because you have said that we are working on gender responsive action, but how much that's inclusive? For example, when we come to women are we are all on homogeneous group, because we are women from disability with disability, and we have women with marginalized community, and we are women who are literate, and we can see the intersectionality of women in different matters. So how we are going to support them with an inclusive manner. And another one is when I see sometimes my colleague from there has been explained very well. Women are not disadvantaged because I think we can support them. Usually we hear that we need to empower women. We need to empower women. Did we hear that we need to empower men? I don't think, because we need to give space for them. We need to capacitate their power. They have the power, and you need to support them to amplify their capacity, to show their power. So it's better to say capacitate women and strengthen their capacity and anything what else. In addition to that, it will be great that women not to say women beneficiaries because they have the right. They are the right holders for that service because they are not getting this. They are not more vulnerable for climate injustice.
I'm sorry.
So
So what is your question?
my question is, how the first one is how we are going to see the inclusivity of gender responsive climate action because women are not in a homogeneous group. And the other one, it's not just a question, just for the wording. It will be great to say women right holders because women are not beneficiaries for our service because they deserve that service from us. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. I don't see any other hands. So I will turn the floor back to the panelists to be able to respond to the questions. Sorry, can we have the microphone here for the panelists? Go ahead.
So yeah, I can take two questions, the one addressed to the SIF and also from ActionAid. So the one addressed to the SIF, thank you very much. That's a very good question. And you reminded me what I forgot to mention, by the way. So when we provide funds investment to the government, to the national government, we also do have, particularly in some of our programs, for example, previously under the Forest Investment Plan, there is a program called Forest Investment Plan, and recently Nature, People, Climate. So in addition to what we are investing through the government channel, we have a dedicated grant mechanism that targets the local community. So in the previous years, for the last decade, we have worked on this, the SIF worked on this through the World Bank actually, and that the outcome, the resource that is allocated is compared to what is allocated through the national government is not really very much, but the impact that is really harnessed from that investment is very much impressive because that targets the local community, the marginalized sector, and really addresses the inclusivity that is already not targeted not addressed the actions through the national government. So recently, through the new Nature, People, Climate program, which was actually many African countries are benefiting from this fund. For example, we have Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Egypt, and also from the southern, we have many countries, Namibia, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Malawi. So in all those countries, we have an investment channel through the national government that addresses the national priority, but also there is a dedicated fund that targets the local community, mainly addresses issues related to gender and some other actions that are needed related to the climate and uh, the climate mitigation and adaptation actions. For the question from ActionAid, it's a very good question. Recently, if I'm not mistaken, actually this should have been addressed to the SIF. Yes, we do have a gender responsive or a gender inclusive planning that targets, that brings women, not, as you said, not as a beneficiary, but also as part of the process, as part of the implementation. They are not only benefiting from the process, they are also part of the solution by bringing them into the decision making, by bringing them by allowing them to co-create the design process itself. So this is what we're doing. As you said, the women are not homogeneous, you're right. But these are the things that we're trying really to address through this dedicated grant mechanism, because through the national investment process, it's very challenging to address and to really touch that kind of grassroots levels. So for this, the SAFE has this dedicated grant mechanism, which is really an impressive mechanism, which is going to be implemented in Ethiopia recently, and also in the countries that I've mentioned, and also elsewhere in the world. Thank you very much.
Angela, do you want? Go ahead. I mean, either way, one and then one.
Sure. Happy to respond to the questions around skilling. So in terms of the skilling and employment program, currently it's a South Africa specific program under the JET IP for South Africa, but it definitely is the learnings that we are taking from there can be scaled. Understanding as well that various countries across the continent are looking at skilling in different ways, how you bring in TVETs and vocational training beyond university so that you do have those critical skills that can be used across the transition. So knowing that artisans need to be equipped, knowing that there needs to be a strengthening around the technical elements themselves. That is something that I know that various countries are looking into. And then just to respond, and my colleagues can add on in terms of equipping young women once they have been capacitated in entrepreneurship. I think that's something that's also critical to emphasize that, you know, once you are capacitated, you can't be just skilled for the sake of skilling. You need to be capacitated. You need to be patient, bringing in the element of, business acumen and really creating an opportunity where women-led businesses are sustainable, are self-sufficient, and are able to, generate and provide more income and finances, but also be able to employ and take on and grow their own businesses. So very cognizant of that, and just want to thank you for your question on us reflecting on that.
Yeah, I also had just one more comment, and this is um, just a reflection on when you said women are not disadvantaged. And I wanted just to provide some historical context here. So when I started my career about 15 years ago now, it was very normal to have investment portfolios that only had male-founded businesses. It was common. Nobody ever talked about it because it was not really a big deal. We just continued, going ahead with life as normal. And I think what you're reflecting right now is the increased conversation. So now there's a lot more conversation around funding businesses that are female-led. There's a lot more funding that's now starting to be allocated. But what we're trying to correct is a long history of significant underinvestment, and this is what has led to this sort of systemic barriers that we talk about now. So I guess our hope is that eventually this will not be a conversation. We'll have significant financing that goes to both, male founded businesses, female founded businesses, and that's what inclusion really means. It means everybody is part of the conversation. Yeah, so just wanted to provide that feedback.
So, yeah, go ahead. If any of the other panelists want to respond.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to add few points on the women are not disadvantaged question, especially in rural Africa, like in Ethiopia. If you take the case of land ownership, the data clearly shows that the women are disadvantaged. When I had a data which says only 20% of women have land as compared to 65% of the men at individual level, not at family level. So when it comes to formal access to finance, also only 20% of women have access to formal finance. So there are clear indications that the practices on the ground are not fair. So we have to take imperative actions to cover that gender gaps. That's the thing I want to add. Maybe if I have time, let me highlight the few points I forgot from my previous question. Whatever we do, it should be locally suitable and acceptable. We should take into consideration the local customs and the traditions. And so we have to integrate in the indigenous knowledge based and positive indigenous knowledge so that it can maximize the impact we have, and it would bring us better buy-in for our interventions so that we get trust from the local community. Thank you very much.
Super. Thank you so much. So, if that's it from the panelists, okay. So just to wrap up the panel session, the key messages that I've gathered, sorry, the key messages that I've gathered so far, are that In Ethiopia, there is quite a bit of work happening around gender and climate policy. National strategies are recognizing the link between gender and climate change, but gaps still remain in the implementation, the accountability, the alignment across sectors, and we do need to work on strengthening that as well as the accountability overall. The role of civil society and of NGOs, organizations can demonstrate, such as Farm Africa, can demonstrate how gender mainstreaming and resilience building can be integrated into climate action at community level and really helping to move the conversation on gender equality and women's empowerment at the very grassroots level where the people really are. But this should also be inclusive of the different groups and be tailored towards the different groups that exist within communities. The key challenges that we seem to be hearing is that there is limited funding, but that there are some options and opportunities that could be looked at to have some South-South learning or scaled up that would help us to enable women to get access. But we see limited financing, policy gaps, and weak institutional capacity to continue, and this slows progress on gender responsive climate action. And then we need more support for impact, including a coordinated support, greater access to gender sensitive climate finance, climate data, and stronger influence on policy frameworks are essential to scale interventions. Particularly, we need tailored financial products and opportunities for women at community level and women entrepreneurs with dedicated skills development in adaptation and mitigation as well as entrepreneurship. So this is a bit of my summary, and I hope that I captured the different pieces that you were all speaking about. So that brings us to the end of our panel discussion, and I would like you all to help me to thank the panel for their bold contributions to us today. Thank you very much. You can move back to your seats if you like. And we move then to the very last bit, which is the closing remarks for this session. Here, yeah. The closing remarks will be delivered by Dr. Nathaniel Agola, who is the Chief Country Economist in charge of Ethiopia at the African Development Bank Country Office. He has also served as Chief Strategy Officer in the Financial Sector Development Department of the bank prior to joining as the Country Economist Department. Dr. Agola is a professor of economics and finance at the Graduate School of Global Studies Doshisha University in Japan prior to joining AfDB. Please welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Yes, those were very interesting discussions. So just to close, I have to say first and foremost that this has been a very great privilege to listen to the discussions today around the two pivotal issues. That's financing and also policies. And what comes through clearly is that gender equality is not just a matter of justice, but also is a powerful driver of climate resilience, innovation, and inclusive growth. Uh, I do see that for Ethiopia, these themes do resonate very strongly, and that's the same for the other regional countries. And just to speak for Ethiopia, I do appreciate that the government has adopted progressive gender policies and climate strategies that recognize women as actors in national development. From the national gender policy to Ethiopia's updated climate resilience framework, the direction seems to be quite clear that climate action must be gender responsive. For the African Development Bank, I have to reiterate that we are committed to supporting the agenda that was being discussed here. Through our Ethiopia country strategy paper, which is our main programmatic document to support programs in the country, we focus on inclusive growth and climate smart development, and we integrate gender across all the sectors, from agriculture, energy, urban resilience, and private sector development. We are very proud that Ethiopia is among the first countries with a recently approved CIF Nature, People, and Climate Investment Plan, which actually provides a very good roadmap for scaling investments that both strengthen community resilience and women in leadership. So the efforts that are being pursued in Ethiopia do align very, very well with that of the bank's mandate. We focus on unlocking finance and policy reforms, and also generating knowledge that places women and youth at the heart of green transition. I think knowledge component is quite important because from the questions that we were hearing here and the diverse views, for instance, that no, maybe women are not disadvantaged or it's this and that, we need to work from a position of knowledge, and we need to be supported by very credible data. So that remains very important. And let me also say that I do see that through renewable energy initiatives, climate smart agriculture, and support to women entrepreneurs, there's a promise for the future. As we move forward towards COP30, today exchanges, I think, do remind us that our work must be anchored on partnerships. And then governments, financial institutions, civil society, and the private sector all have a role to play in dismantling very, very rigid structural barriers so that we can ensure that climate action delivers for everyone. On behalf of the bank, from our country office here, I do thank all our partners, the panelists, the attendees, everyone here for this very stimulating dialogue. So we look forward to continuing this journey with you and to ensure that inclusive climate solutions move from word to action and from plans to tangible results in communities across Ethiopia and Africa. And with those few remarks, I do thank you very genuinely. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So with that, we come to a close for this session. Thank you to all of you for sharing your time with us. There's many other sessions going on, but you chose to be here with us today. So we are very grateful for you taking the time to listen to what we have to say and prioritizing this session over the others. So with that, we close the session. We would just like the panelists and the speakers to have a closing session, closing picture with us, a family picture. But for everyone else, we greatly appreciate your time and thank you very much.